So I have done a lot of pistol dot reviews on this channel since I started. And I've got to work with a lot of great companies like Gideon Optics, Siley, Zalisi, Meprolite, and a few others. But the very first company to ever send me a pistol dot to do a review on was ADE Advanced Optics. Now it's been almost 3 years now since I've done an optic review for ADE. But out of the blue a few weeks ago, they reached out to me and said, hey, we've got something we'd like to send you to review. And after I read the spec sheet of the optic they wanted to send out, I was definitely intrigued. And this is the optic they sent out, and it is called the Trumpet. But what makes this dot unique over any other pistol dot that we've ever tested on the channel, this is a blue dot. Now you probably want to know, well, why would I want a blue dot? And my answer to that is hell if I know. But let's go to the range and find out. Alright, here is our ADE Trumpet, and this is the blue dot version. They also have this in a red dot version. It is a 4MOA blue dot, it says it right there on the front of the optic. The back here is a little strange. It does have two white dots in the back of the optic, but there is basically no rear sight here. But the build quality on it looks to be pretty decent. Got your up and down button right here. Adjust your brightness level up here with the plus button and down with the minus button. And over on this side you do have the side load battery tray, so you will not have to remove the optic to change the battery, which is cool. Alright, real quick I want to show you this 4MOA blue dot, and I will say that it is nice and bright. Alright, so let's start diving into the specs on this. This does have the RMR footprint. The lens on this is a 22x16 coated lens. It obviously is open emitter. We already talked about the fact it has a side load battery. It does run on a CR1632 battery. It does have a 20,000 hour battery life. Obviously that's going to be on the lowest setting. And this does have shake awake, and we will test that out before the end of the video. Now the Trumpet has a 1.77 inch length. It is 1.18 inches in width and 1.02 inches in height. And the weight on this is 1.13 ounces. Now we already went over the brightness level adjustment buttons here on the side. This does have 7 brightness levels. 6 of those are daytime settings and 1 NV. One thing I've noticed are the buttons on this are sticking out pretty far. They are not recessed in. So if you are thinking about using this for carry, keep in mind that you could easily bump these buttons while it's rubbing up against you or in the holster or whatever. So I would have liked to seen those recessed in a little more, but they're sticking out pretty far. I don't know if you can see that or not. A couple other things we're going to go over. The body on this is made out of aluminum, but I cannot find a waterproof rating. And when I look in the user manual, it just says NA. Now, being that it is a side load battery and the bottom of this is sealed, I would assume it would probably have at least an IPX6 waterproof rating, but there is no waterproof rating. So I guess we're going to have to test that ourselves. So I'll have to remember to bring a water bottle to the range when we test this optic out. So one thing that I've noticed, and this has been with all the ADE optics that I've reviewed over the years, that they only rate these up to 45 ACP. So just something else I want to throw out there that you might want to keep in mind. All right, the next thing we're going to go over is the windage and elevation. And you know that I like to test these out in every video that we do. But kind of another flaw here and another con. As you can see on the Optic itself, there is no up on the elevation and there is no right on the windage. Now that goes back to that tool that we have. So this is telling you to go up and down. They are 1 MOA per click, but guess what? In the manual, and I cannot find anything online about the total travel on this. So I have no idea if it's 45 MOA of total travel on the windage or the elevation, because it's not on the internet and it's not in the manual. So there's that. So let's check the windage first. Nothing. It's not tactile at all. They're a little stiff, but just smooth turns there. Let's check our elevation. Same thing, no clicks. It's not tactile, it's not audible. So there's that. We'll just have to see if it holds up. All right, guys, I'm gonna go get this mounted up on our test gun and I will see you out at the range. Now, my test gun I chose to use was my Ross Martin RM1C Comp. Now, I zeroed this Optic in at 15 yards. It only took 3 or 4 shots to get it right where I wanted it. And I started out shooting some USPSA targets with some steel mixed in. And right out of the gate, I was actually really liking this dot. All right, we got all our hits on steel. Our next target, we've got all alphas and 1 Charlie. And our next target, we've got all alphas, 1 Charlie. And we've got all our hits on steel. Now let's talk about the glass quality, and then we'll dive a little more into the 4 MOA Blue Dot. Now normally when I do an Optic review, I either tell you that the glass is very clear, or it has the slightest bit of blue tint to the glass when you're looking through it. This one is a little bit different. Maybe it's because it's a Blue Dot, but it's almost like looking through a window that has just the slightest bit of window tint to it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're looking through the window on this Optic, it's just got a little bit of that smoke glass look to it. Once I was outdoors at the range, I barely noticed it. All right, we got all our hits on steel. Our next target, we've got all alphas, but we do have a Charlie here and 1 way up here. And our next target, we've got all alphas, 1 Charlie. And we've got all our hits on steel. Now, as far as the Blue Dot goes, I'm pretty impressed with it. I'm getting very little starbursting. Definitely less than what I get with red. It's almost like how my eyes see a green dot. I get very little starbursting with the green dot, and the same goes with this Blue Dot. Now, I do wish that it was just a little bit brighter. Now, I filmed this video over the course of 2 days at the range. Both of those days, it was bright and sunny out. Was not having any issue with seeing the dot on the brown targets, the white steel targets, or my yellow and black Allen targets. But I still wish that it could just be a little bit brighter. Now, the next thing I wanted to test was, what does the Blue Dot look like when you're looking into the grass on the backstops around me? And I could see the Blue Dot perfect even on the bright green grass and weeds growing on the backstops. Now, the next thing I wanted to test out was, being that it was a Blue Dot and I had a bunch of blue barrels in the shooting bay, I wanted to see if you'd be able to see the Blue Dot on the blue barrels, and as you can see, that was not an issue either. So even putting the Blue Dot on something that's blue, no issues at all. Now, after I was done shooting the USPSA and the steel targets, I wanted to move on to shooting some 10-shot groups. So we fired a couple 10-shot groups, and then I decided that we would torture test this Optic a little bit and start racking the slide off the tailgate of my truck, and then go back and shoot another 10-shot group to see if we lost zero. And I am happy to say that the dot did not lose zero. It did not shut off. It it did not loosen up. It held up just fine. Now the next test I wanted to do with this optic was see if it was waterproof, due to the fact that we could not find a waterproof rating on this dot. So I decided to pour a whole bottle of water on the optic, and then I had a little bit of a catastrophic thing happen at the range. Had nothing to do with this optic, but I did have to leave the range, which meant that I just poured water all over the optic. I shut it off, and I had to pack everything up and go home. So when I got back to the range for day 2, I was a little worried that the optic might not turn back on due to the fact I just dumped a whole bottle of water on it and then I did not really dry it off. But I'm happy to say that as soon as I got to the range and turned the dot on, it came right back on. Now let's talk about the shake awake. And something new that I'm doing on the channel is testing the shake awake after we get all the range footage done. And that's just because of the added abuse of the optic reciprocating back and forth all day on the slide. I just believe that it's a better test to do it after the range. And I am happy to say that the shake awake is working just fine. So let's talk about the pros and cons of the ADE Trumpet Blue Dot. And we're going to start off with the cons first. My first con, like I said earlier, I just wish the dot was a little bit brighter. The second con is, even though they put the 2 white dots on the back of the optic, they actually don't have a notch or a built-in rear sight. So if the dot goes down on you, you are relying on just those 2 white dots on the back of the optic, where I'd rather have a notch or the built-in rear sight on the optic. And my third con, going back to when we were going over all the specs of the optic, I just wish the windage and elevation adjustments were more tactile and audible. But as you can see, it did not make any difference at all, because throughout 2 days at the range, we never lost 0 on the optic. Now let's dive into the pros of this optic. My first pro, it's a side load battery. A lot of the ADE optics back in the day when I first started the channel, they were all bottom load battery. They were kind of a little bit behind the times of all the other optic companies, but now we have the side load battery, which is super cool. My second pro is the optic's pretty damn rugged. I mean, we racked it off the tailgate of the truck. We racked up a few hundred rounds on the optic over the course of the 2 days at the range. We poured water all over it, and the optic is still running just fine. And the biggest pro with this optic is the price. And you can pick this optic up for 105 beans on Amazon, which, after what I've seen with this optic, that's pretty hard to beat. Now let's talk about what we hit on right at the very beginning of the video. What is a blue dot good for? And honestly, I still really don't have an answer for that. And I've done a lot of research since I've had this dot to try to figure out why people would like a blue dot over a red dot or a green dot. And from what I found online, that people who are colorblind tend to see a blue LED or emitter better than what they see red or green. Now, how much truth there is to that, I have no idea. But what I can say after testing this optic is that the blue dot definitely starbursts less than a red dot, and it's about the same as a green dot. So I guess at the end of the day, it just kind of comes down to, what do you want? Do you want a red dot, a green dot, or a blue dot? And the last question you probably have for me, do I recommend this dot? Well, after what I've seen today, yes, especially at that price point. Because honestly, the only other optic company that really even comes close to the price of this ADE would be some of the optics from Zulisi. But even then, the ADE is still cheaper. So I really don't think it's a bad option at all. Now, if you are interested in getting one of these optics, I will have an Amazon link to this exact optic in the weekly deals section on my website, and you can go over there and pick one up. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.